Suppose you all watched on TV the accident that took place in the duck boat in Missouri, right? 17 people killed, 9 of them from one family. Please keep them in your prayer, how devastating it must have been. The words across from the first and the second reading somewhat resonate with the idea of a shepherd. The idea of shepherd is one of the common things both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And shepherd was usually meant for kings who governed people. Therefore, the leaders of the people were supposed to lead people in God's ways. Primarily, it was meant for the kings. And then there was another structure. Priestly class would do the rituals. And we have the third class of people called the prophets, who would confront both the priests and the kings to recognize God's ways. So basically, shepherding means leading people by example. So we have leadership. We expect leadership on the political level, religious level, social level, right? In many fronts, even in a household, the head of the household is a shepherd. So we are all called to be shepherds. There are shepherds that are inspiring, and therefore their lives make us see the sparkle in their ways. But there are times shepherds fail. We will talk in great detail about the first reading where the shepherds fail. And when they fail, people in leadership fail. It is called, what is it called? Starts with yes. Got a scandal. Because they are supposed to be in a leading position, they have to be exemplary. They fail. I was touched by a very beautiful example of a shepherd. It's a sort of shepherd experience that was talked about in the newscast 2-3 times. So I would like John Van Zyl to play that for us.
And just listen to what happened to him on the night before his first job. Walter Carr of Homewood, Alabama, was getting ready to start his first day on the job, his first job. But the night before he started with that moving company, his car broke down. So Walter started walking 20 miles to get there, starting at midnight. And he made it to the home he was supposed to pack up, the Lamy family of Pelham, Alabama. It was 2 days later his boss at Bellhop Moving walked Walter over to a group of cars. One of those cars was about to be his.
This is my car. I'd like it to be your car. I really think that, it's in much better hands with you than it is with me. I couldn't think of a better way to part ways with this and put it to better use. Serious. Yeah.
Walter says he hopes his story helps others. And right there, the family at the home he walked to all night long to help move.
You've changed all of our lives. Walter, you have no idea how many lives you've changed and inspired. You have no idea.
Walter tonight on his way with help from the family he moved and from the boss he moved with his determination. Walter, an example for us all. Thanks for watching here tonight. I'm David Muir. I hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Good night.
Isn't it beautiful? There are so many examples in that. 20 miles walking in a determined way to be there on the first day of the job and not having a vehicle. There were times when he was stopped by the cops, but he told them the story. They would give him a ride, a determination in this young man, and for the employer to be so sensitive to him, to be able to gift him with a vehicle. And for the family, when they knew the story, they were touched. This man walked 20 miles to help us pack and move. This is called being shepherds. There are so many people who are shepherds. The young man who was surprised wants to be like his employer, his boss, doing something like that someday. And that is what God calls us to be examples one another. Now we go to the Old Testament and see how people in leadership fail in so many ways. There's a little bit of a history in the first reading. Let me walk you through that. I hope it is not boring. It may be boring, that's okay too. About 628 years ago, the prophet Isaiah lived at the time of the king named Josiah, who was a great king. He invited people to go through a reformation. He was a great king, a good role model. So the prophet cheered him up, and all on a sudden he had to enter into a battle with the Babylonians. So when he was defending the country, he died. Since then, it brought about a blow to the Reformation, and therefore the kings after that did not pay attention to the voice of God coming through prophets. So they were self-centered, and they did not promote justice. We have been listening to some of the injustices in the past few weeks, and therefore he will go on to condemn them in the name of God. Let me give some of the names. He challenged nearly 5 kings, and the last one, the reign of kings will be over. There will be a great transition in the history of salvation. The first one is called Jehoiakim. This king did not bother to walk in God's ways, so he condemned him by saying, "You are building on the wrong way. And therefore you shall be ashamed and condemned. No descendant will sit in your throne." So Jeremiah will condemn him, and obviously he was taken as a captive to Babylon. And after that, there was another king who was enthroned. He is actually the uncle of the one who was held in captivity. His name is Mattaniah. And Jeremiah began to advise him, but he would not listen to his stories, listen to his advice, but he would listen to the stories of his advisors. And therefore, this king also will be taken captive. And the last of the king will be called Zedekiah. The name means, "Our justice, O Lord." And he too seemed to listen to the prophet, but he would not really be the one to save the people. Therefore, the kingdom will be destroyed, people will be taken captives. So the prophet will go on to say, from the leftover kingdom, God is going to create a new kingdom, and the new kingdom will be like the kingdom of David that united both the northern and southern kingdom. Jeremiah at the time did not realize it went beyond his expectation to the new king called Jesus, the newborn king will unite all of them. So what we see is there were scandalous kings. And we also have had in the history of our church scandalous popes too. How we went through this sexual abuse of the clergy and so on, how heartbreaking it was. And how we become so blind in our own ways. Somehow things get to our head. So we have not been good examples. And people in the government, politicians, they fail us, right? They do not show us God's ways and so on, forget their responsibility and so on. So we are all called to walk in God's ways, forgive one another, and be examples. And moving on to the second reading, Jesus did something extraordinary. The people of Israel always walled off the Gentiles from coming into the temple and worshiping with them because they thought they were God's special people. How were they special? Because God gave them commandment, and because they faithfully observed, they were chosen. Therefore, the others were unchosen. So they would build a wall from behind which the Gentiles would be worshiping. They would not even be able to see the door of the front door of the church. Such was the separation. And Paul calls us, this is not right. Therefore, Jesus came and broke the wall, meaning he will become a human being and do more than the law. And therefore, his obedience will make everyone sons of God, both the Gentiles and Jews. So, do not build wall, because God has come to break the wall. Building a wall, as we know, is also symbolic of separating people, them versus us. When we start isolating people, we become exclusive rather than being inclusive. And God calls us to break down that wall. Open your hearts to everyone. Do not be biased about other people. You need to embrace everyone as God's children. And moving on to the gospel, we find people are looking for Jesus. They saw the miracles. He would try to take his disciples to a separate place where he wanted them to recharge. But people would come in large numbers. Why did they go to Jesus? Because the word says Jesus found them like a lost sheep. People who lost their shepherd. People felt there was no leadership because the country was under an alien kingdom. They suffered slavery, and the priests were not examples, and therefore Jesus comes up and speaks those beautiful words, and that's what he tells us. There will be people in your life who you expect to be role models to you. They may at times fail, but I will not fail under any circumstances. I will understand you no matter who does not understand. And that is why Jesus calls us to come around the table. All of your burdens will be unburdened if you came here and participated in the celebration of the Eucharist, where everyone is made equal. And therefore, let us take a moment of silence and ask for this grace to know that Jesus is our shepherd who is offering himself as food for us so that we may be satisfied. And because he embraces all of us as one family, we then are called to get out and build communities, embracing everyone, and that we may be guided by the Good Shepherd.